Hey everyone, welcome to the Village Films podcast. I'm Caleb and I'm joined by this guy named David. And today we are talking about 5 mistakes to avoid when editing your documentary. This is just my opinion.
I'm a filmmaker.
Are you guys videographers?
Who cares?
Before we get into the 5 things, why don't we just talk about, you were just saying some of those moments we had where in post-production things weren't feeling great.
Yeah, we just got done with production. We have 30 terabytes worth of footage.
Terabytes with a T.
And we're staring at a timeline that we there were moments where we didn't even know where to start, because I think in pre-production we had some general concepts and direction we wanted to take the film, but I mean, starting it was just really hard. Like, it's like that thing where it's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And that really,
and it wasn't like a lack of great footage or content. We had like these powerful stories and interviews and like all kind of stuff, but it's like you have all this stuff and you're just like, where do I even go?
Yeah.
And it's probably falls into like the pre-production side. Like if we had
the more prep you do.
Yeah, if we had done more prep, like to actually have the story, which I felt like we did a decent amount, but
well, I mean, like, gosh, it's so different than narrative. Like scripted content, you know when you get to the edit, you just follow your scripts, blueprint. A documentary, it's real life stories, things adjust, things are changing constantly.
You're creating the narrative. There's no script that's telling you the narrative.
Yeah.
So the first thing we have on here is kind of it's less about the concept, more just practical. It's the hardware management, backups, the speed of your, of the, whatever you're dumping your footage on. And there's probably a lot of videos out there that probably are more technical oriented to this that could give you an entire breakdown of what to do.
Well, the thing is, we are traditionally client work, small form edits, like that's what we do. So we're working off 2-3 terabyte SSDs constantly, and we can move on, do one project, move on to the next. But with this, it was like, we got 30 terabytes worth of data. We searched all on YouTube and no one could tell us, like, there's not like there's not like a Paramount editor that's like, hey, I use this setup. Like there's no information out there for you to.
They're too busy editing movies and making tons of money and being
so
on
we
yachts.
kind of had to figure out, what kind of setup we need to do.
There's not a 30 terabyte solid state drive to give you maximum speeds. Just to give you an idea of what we were dealing with, we ran every interview with 3 cameras. We had 3 cameras in every interview. They were all red, so you're talking about 6K 8K files. And so some of these days, if we did 3 or 4 interviews, we might have like 6-7 terabytes of footage for one day. So putting it on a Samsung SSD was not an option. So that's when we started looking at, okay, we need
we need a server
or something like that. And we did a lot of research to try to figure out what was the best one.
And we needed something that we both could edit off at the same time.
Yeah.
And so that was also challenging. So I think moving forward, like we had to do it again.
Challenges, yeah.
If we had to do it again, we would get the Thunderblade.
The one that we got was is it OWC?
It's
I don't know the brand, but
yeah, I don't know.
It had decently fast advertised speeds, but I think once we both started pulling footage from it and
it was fast. It still got the job done.
Yeah, obviously we finished the film, but the Thunderblade is like, it has almost all SSD formatting, so
but
it's super fast.
We didn't have $15,000 to drop on that setup.
before you are finished with the production, start looking at how you want to offload this stuff. And maybe you're not using 3 reds, and so it might be easier for you, but definitely like get an idea in mind of like how you want to approach this, because you need to have that in mind actually before production, because you're going to be offloading every day.
And
so
then you're going to have 2 backups.
Yeah.
One on site and one off site.
Yeah, you're
so
supposed
that's
to have
a ton of data.
Yeah, you're supposed to have 3, right? 3, 2, 1.
That sounds absurd.
Three backups. I don't remember what it is, but we didn't do that, which is
Risky.
dangerous. But anyways, so the next thing about editing and the post-production side is you just have on here B-roll.
Well,
This also has more to do with pre-production.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're gonna have some overlap. But when we got into the edit, we realized we don't have nearly as much B-roll as we need.
Yeah,
Like we screwed up on
which
that.
I'm surprised that we didn't.
Because we filmed B-roll.
Yeah,
But there wasn't enough, and so
we realized you needed like 2 or 3 scenes for a major character. Like, if you think you got enough, shoot more.
Yeah,
like,
shoot way
it's
more.
so much better to have way more and have something to pull from than just not having anything. Because sometimes the B-roll you can shoot may dictate like how a scene can feel and how you want to get to another scene. And so
that's gonna drive the edit forward.
So we had kind of like our first wave of production. There was a lot of interviews and not enough B-roll. And then after that, it was kind of a mix of we shot additional interviews, and then we really started like understanding, okay, we don't have enough B-roll. So then we started doing just B-roll days. And so our production schedule is kind of scattered like that, but it's because we didn't really get all what we needed in that first wave. So
because we were stupid and we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah,
But we
looking
figured it
back,
out.
if you have a long interview with someone that's a major part of your story, you need to spend about a day with them with the interview, and then come up with 2 or 3 or 4 scenes. Just don't underestimate how much B-roll you're going to need, because you're going to need a lot. So
Yeah, a lot of this is like to save this in the edit is you want to prepare for it in pre-production. And so the thing is, we did plan for this in pre-production, but executing it on the day is a lot
we're making
harder.
ourselves sound so stupid.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean,
we did a ton of pre-production,
yeah.
but it was our first feature doc, so
well,
you're gonna make
and there's
mistakes.
just like with documentaries, you're dealing with volunteers' timelines. So
Yeah.
they may not have 5 hours to put towards an interview and additional footage.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you're interviewing the mom of a gun violence situation.
Yeah.
You're not like shooting a scene with Jessica Alba. So like she's not, it's her job. This mom is just trying to live her life, and you are wanting her just to share her story. So you're on her timeline because you want to be gracious of that. The next thing I have on here is just the archival footage aspect, which
Yes.
is
Huge in a documentary.
You should be thinking about that as soon
Day
as you say
one.
this is our idea, and you start running with that idea. Start thinking about the archival, because it is going to take so much time to find what you need. Honestly, if we were going to do it again, I've said this a couple of times, I think we should have hired someone that was just pulling archival. That's all they're doing. They're pulling clips, they're pulling photos, they're telling us where they got it, and that's all they do. They don't have to edit anything. We just need them to compile it.
Well, so explain archival footage.
Well, I mean, how would I define that? It's
because it can fall under several categories, but like any type of footage that is out there that's related to your story, that it could be things from, a decade ago, it could be things that are 6 months ago. Basically, any type of footage that is that you can license or that you can get permission to use, or that falls under fair use, and so it's footage that you didn't film that you need to use to help tell your story, basically.
And it can be photos as well. It's basically any media that supports your storyline or what you're trying to say. That's all it is. And you didn't make it. So that kind of leads us to into the next thing, which kind of goes into the stock footage, licensing, the music, all the stuff that you're not making that's getting added into your film. Just have that in your mind that you're gonna have to pay for a lot of stuff. The music, you're gonna have to pay for all your music, stock footage, and a lot of this archival stuff. We had some stuff that we kind of made the mistake of, we would pull something and then we were going to figure out later where it came from and license it, when we should have just tried to tackle that right then, because some of this stuff we used, it took so long to track down the original creator of the thing.
So you have to create an EDL, an edit decision list. So it's basically a spreadsheet where whenever you're pulling clips that aren't your own, you need to document where that clip is, who's the copyright holder, and the link that you got it from. And so
and this is something we didn't even know. We'd never even heard that word. So definitely research that. And if you start the EDL when you start in post, that is going to save you so much time, because we had to do that on the back end when everything was done. And so then, David's asking me, hey, where'd you get this 2-second random clip? And I had to go through and just try to remember where I got it on the internet. And so thankfully we were able to track it all down. But
the reason you need it is because it was for our instance, for a documentary. We hired fair use attorneys out in LA. And basically their job is to review your film and make sure that you're covered from a defamation standpoint and you're covered from a fair use standpoint. Because there were clips that we used in our documentary that we didn't license or didn't fall under a copyright claim. It fell under fair use. And so, but in order for it to qualify under fair use, you got to get legal counsel as someone specifically who specializes in that category of law. And so
and what you'll learn too when you talk to the lawyers is that the fair use stuff is very kind of like nebulous, where it's like it's written and designed in a way to where it can be it's written in a way to where lawyers in court can argue it for or against cases, and it's complex, so you need a lawyer to like break it down for you. And if you want to use fair use, they have to actually have a letter that is saying that these things they're using are fall under the fair use law and stuff like that.
So when you do go and you get your lawyers, the first thing they're going to ask for is a screener link to your film, and then the EDL, the edit decision list, and what's called a fair use log. And so the EDL is going to have the links to all of the footage that you used, and that includes stock footage. So anything that you did license, the sound effects, the music, the clips, the photos, and all of the fair use clips, that's all going to be in the EDL. And then on the fair use log, it's only going to be a spreadsheet of everything that you are using, that you're intending to use for fair use. And so that's got to be how long you use the clip, how long the clip is in its entirety, who's the copyright owner,
and the reason you used
it, and then the link where you got it from. So that's all going to go in that. So they need all of that. And then they'll tell you, hey, this is good, this is not good, and then you edit accordingly to that. And then once all that's said and done, you get a nice fancy letter from them, and you take that letter and you go to an insurance company and you purchase E&O insurance, errors and omissions.
This is kind of going into another episode though.
Yeah, but basically you need all that stuff in your edit.
There's a whole legal side to the documentary after you're done with post-production that we're going to do a video on. But a lot of this stuff we're saying, we want to share from our experience. And there are things we would have done differently in the post-production that would have saved us time and would have made things easier. And a lot of it has to do with the EDL, the fair use log, and just knowing what we're pulling from with our archival. And one thing that we didn't touch on was there's kind of two options with music. You can have someone score your film, just one person, or you can pull from a site like Music Better, Artlist, and use their existing catalog, and then pull as much music as you want, and they will give you a quote of what all you used. And so we actually explored the option of scoring, but from a budget perspective, it just wasn't going to work with us. And the costs versus those two things can vary a lot, and there are pros and cons to each thing. And so if you have a decent music budget, you may want to explore the option of having someone score it.
Yeah, because original music's always going to be better because you're not going to hear your song playing in someone else's video.
Yeah, you own the rights to that song. No one will ever hear it again. But we did hear stories of, like, I think the guy working with us from Music Bed, his name's Chris. Awesome dude, very informative. He told us for the show, what's it called? But yeah, for Apple had someone score, I think it was one episode or maybe a couple episodes. Someone scored a couple episodes. Apple, they pay like, Apple hated the music, and they just had someone just completely rescore it. But for us, we don't have the money to have someone go back and score the film again if we don't like it. So there is a risk of, like, if I think I like this person's style, their music, and then they go and score the film, and I hate
Is that what
it.
you
Was
said?
a lot. It was like,
Oh, gosh.
but that's not why we didn't do it. It was just our budget
That's one of the
limitations.
reasons.
There was a fear there, but the guy that we were considering going with for the score, he was an amazing composer, and so I think if we had used him, he would have done a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't justify it from a budget standpoint.
And another reason was when you're editing, you want to edit to music to get the flow and the creative down, and so you have to have some type of temp music. And so I think that's where it can get really hard, is like you might start editing to your temp music, and then your score comes in and you're like, oh, that's not really
make it
what I
like the
wanted
temp.
it.
And there's a whole conversation with that about, like, getting too attached to the temp music, and that's a whole nother video. But I think that's kind of a good overview of, like, some mistakes that you probably want to avoid when you start editing. And a lot of it has to do with just thinking about the edit and thinking about post-production before you get there, and make a plan and just do some research beyond even what we're telling you about, things you need to have in place, and, like, things you need to be thinking about before you actually start working on your edit. But I think, and if you want to go see our amazing edit of our film, go on iTunes and watch our documentary.
We'll link the
we'll
link it
provide
down
a
below.
link. What am I talking about?
Worry, dude.
Send us a letter and we will tell you. So yeah, that's it. If you guys enjoyed this, just leave a comment or subscribe or like, and we will see you guys in the next one.